on? We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Lindsay Patterson, Mike Santagata here. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Not bad. Recording on a Monday. Again, a pretty quiet off season for the Cincinnati Bengals. They had their off season workouts. OTAs will begin next week. Then they'll have their mandatory mini camp in June. Some clips this morning from camp. Joe Burrow with I'd say camp. It's off season workouts. They'll get to training camp soon. Joe Burrow working out with his wide receivers. Yoshi. A little clip with him and rookie Jermaine Burton. Other than that, not a whole lot happening at the Bengals offseason workouts, and that is fine with me.
Yeah, haven't seen too much yet, but I'm sure as time goes and people are bored, we will see more and more. Well, did you see that one? You see the play? It's pretty normal. Pretty normal throw and catch. It's like, oh, just imagine, just imagine. It's like, okay, yeah, sure.
That's where we're at right now. You know what? I'll take it. And those reps are, I do feel like they are valuable for guys like Jermaine Burton, for some of your rookies who are going to be out there. Obviously, Yoshi, Charlie Jones, all of that's absolutely huge. I expect Jamar Chase to be at OTAs, which will begin next week. And then obviously they'll have a short mini camp and then they'll have their training camp. That's when you'll start to see Jamar Chase in the mix with this offense. T. Higgins, I'm not expecting to see him until maybe the first week of September, towards the very end of training camp. So it'll be determined when he gets there. But Jamar Chase will be in the mix soon with this wide receiver group. So it'll be interesting to see what they have. But yeah, we're going to be excited about any throws right now. Obviously, Joe Burrow coming off the wrist injury, so I'll be watching all those clips defensively. Not a whole lot to pull until really training camp, until you can see some of the contact that these two teams or the offense and the defense are going to be putting out there. So right now it's pretty quiet. Off-season workouts continue for this team. But one of the things I did want to talk about, because we are in May, soon it'll be June, soon it'll be camp, soon it'll be preseason and regular season. But I've heard this on a couple of other pods, and I thought we could do just kind of a quick run through before we get to our mailbag. When you look at this 2024 roster, and we'll just do position groups, not comparison to players and what role they're going to play, if they're going to be wide receiver 3 or anything like that. But I'm going to go with the offense, and you can tell me if you think this team, it could be your early prediction, is better in 2024 than it is in 2023. Obviously, we're going to start with the offense. We'll go an easy one. The quarterback room. There's a lot of similarities except for QB3. At this very moment, it's Joe Burrow and Jake Browning. I would say the Cincinnati Bengals, the only thing obviously coming off a wrist injury is the worst part about that. But Joe's been pretty good out there right now. He's not fully cleared, expected to be fully cleared by the time camp starts. But when you look at the quarterback room, knowing what Jake Browning is, I guess even as a backup quarterback, how do you feel about it compared to 2023?
So I feel better about the quarterback room because going into 2023, we thought that it was going to be Trevor Siemian as the backup, and I personally was not expecting much out of that. So we got the pleasant surprise of Jake Browning. So even if you consider like, well, that's what they always had, like, okay, I still consider this quarterback room to be better because even with the wrist injury, I expect Burrow to be better. So I would say I feel better about the quarterback position going into 2024 than even than I did last year at this time because of the backup situation, but
Mm-hmm.
especially more than after the Burrow um, calf injury.
Yeah, I would agree. We'll move on. Wide receiver group. How are you feeling now? They lose Tyler Boyd. T. Higgins, probably one more year with him. You get a guy like Jamar Chase, obviously wide receiver number one. Bring in Jermaine Burton, Yoshi, Charlie Jones. We really didn't get to see a whole lot towards the end of the stretch out of the two, but Yoshi more in his rookie year. Trent Irwin's obviously in the wide receiver room too. How would you feel right now compared to 2023?
I I think I feel slightly worse.
Okay.
Sometimes I think Tyler Boyd's contributions go. I mean, some people think he was a negative on the field. No, I don't think I'm there. I know he was cheap in the offseason. I think it was just, he's old. I think he overestimated his own market, too, because I think he had offers from Pittsburgh and Kansas City, but then they both get wide receivers in the draft because he's looking for more money. And he goes, shoot, there's not a lot of opportunities left for me. Same with New England. New England also, when they got somebody in the draft. So I was like, sorry. Um, should have struck when the market was hot, but he thought he had a bigger market. I think that's what I thought happened there. And I think I think Tyler Boyd's still a good player. I think he's a solid, like, you look around the league and there are a lot of teams that don't have competency at wide receiver 3. And I know everybody's very excited for Jermaine Burton, but I think that there is no guarantee of competency at slot receiver. No guarantee that Jermaine Burton's going to be able to come in, sit down in zones and read and have chemistry with Joe Burrow like Tyler Boyd did, and be able to get himself open and just have the 3-4 years of work with Joe Burrow combined with his own intelligence, how he always won his receivers, being smart, understanding leverage. So for me, I think they're right now slightly worse. And I could be wrong on that. I would hope I'm wrong. But I don't think we should expect the third wide receiver to come in and give the Bengals the exact same production and efficiency that Tyler Boyd was able to.
Yeah, I will disagree with you here. And maybe I'm a little more optimistic when it comes to the wide receiver room. When I think about wide receiver 3, and when I think about Yoshi, when I think about Charlie Jones in year 2, for me personally, and I'm a huge Tyler Boyd stan. Loved everything he brought to Cincinnati in his 8 years here. Absolutely incredible piece, locker room leader, everything he was able to bring. I think over the last year, and I think even just in a few of the games. I mean, obviously the Texans game is an easy one to point to. There were drops that we normally wouldn't see from a guy like Tyler Boyd. I also think you can look at games in the AFC Championship game, the last one they played with the Kansas City Chiefs, and say if Tyler Boyd was on the field, Tyler Boyd even said it, they probably would have won the game. And I truly believe that. He is obviously a factor. I root for Tyler Boyd with the Tennessee Titans, but maybe I'm just a little optimistic of what they're going to be able to see. I think you can split shares between Yoshi and a guy like Jermaine Burton at that wide receiver 3 role. I don't know what Charlie Jones is, or I would put him there too. You obviously have the safety net in Trenton Irwin, but this is a huge year for a guy like T. Higgins too. I saw the clip on ESPN, Adam Schefter versus Dan Orlovsky about playing and what's going to happen. Is he going to play this year? What if he's feeling like something and he doesn't, almost like Adam Schefter was hinting towards maybe he sits out if he's not feeling it or something like that, which I really didn't like that conversation at all. This is a huge year for T. Higgins, and T. Higgins needs to play. He's coming off a really down year last year, and this is a huge year for him to get the bag. It's probably not going to be with the Cincinnati Bengals, but this is extremely important that he's on the field. Some team will pay for T. Higgins, even if he does have a down year, but you want to get the highest bag of all in the offseason and free agency, you're going to want to play this year. So for me, I'm feeling this wide receiver room just a little bit more, but I could be wrong.
I think my only rebuttal is yes, Tyler Boyd had a couple drop passes, 5 last year, and a 5% drop rate. Doesn't sound awesome. 5% drop rate's, I think, actually fine. It's pretty, I think it's above average. Even in just a limited amount of time, Yosifas was at 8%. So I know that they were like crucial drops, the two I can think of in the past 3 years, the one against the one against Houston and the one against the Rams in the Super Bowl. But for me, that's very, like, I didn't think I still thought he played well when, like important moments. His biggest moment was against the Ravens to win that game. But yeah, I'm at the current point of I feel like Tyler Boyd got a little underrated. But I'm not against the idea that this is a better wide receiver room. I think it certainly could be. I just think there's more variables and unknowns compared to where we were. Like, whenever I see the graphic of like who's got the best wide receiver trio in the league, I used to think Bengals, and now I'm not really there. Like I just think there's too much unknown with Burton, Yosivas, and especially Charlie Jones. I don't know what he's bringing you. To me, the most proven wide receiver is the guy that nobody wants to talk about, Trent Irwin, who I think is a solid player.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine. And you know what? They'll have to lean on him for some games too. And we'll kind of move to this position group, but I'll still kind of throw Mike Gesicki in there because he could be someone who we see more of a receiver type in the slot role. I do feel like Joe Burrow has more weapons going into 2024, which is awesome when you think about it. And the offensive line, all the connections that you'll see on the offensive side of the ball. We'll get to the run game in just a moment. But the tight end group, I feel like this is a very easy answer that it is upgraded. Do you agree?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you're doing Mike Gesicki versus Irv Smith. It's a pretty easy. And I'm not even a very big Mike Gesicki guy. Like, I know a lot of people go back to 2021, like that's what we're getting type of thing.
I'm not either. Yeah.
I don't know, especially after the Irv Smith thing. I was like, there might be a reason he had less than 400 yards the past 2 years and got played off the field for a smart offensive mind of Mike McDaniel. I don't know. I certainly think he's going to be better than Irv Smith because it's certainly going to be harder to be worse. So
True.
uh, that's where
Stop
I
that.
would be on. Like Mitch Wilcox, also a loss. So who knows what the backup long snapper of the team is right now? But yeah, easy. This is a better tight end room.
All right, moving on to the running back room. I know a lot of people have different opinions. Obviously, Joe Mixon was a topic of discussion for the last few off seasons. The Cincinnati Bengals made the move with Zach Moss, Chase Brown. I still feel like it's a running back by committee. How do you feel about this running back room right now compared to last year?
About the same. If I had to pick, maybe slightly worse, just because I knew what Joe Mixon could bring, and Zach Moss really just had the 1 year. Could easily see it being better, but I would say about the same. Like I don't really have too much preference there. Chase
Yeah.
Brown could be leveled up. Like he could be better next year than he was his rookie year. I think that's how you get a better running back room.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you get the explosive plays out of your running back room going into this year. That was one of the biggest things. And obviously, Joe Burrow mentioned it in his first press conference when he talked after the season ended about needing to get explosive in the run game. And I think all that's important. I just don't know what it looks like together. When it comes to their third running back, I guess it's Travion right now. I do think the Cincinnati Bengals would have loved to grab a rookie running back in the draft, but it just didn't fall their way. So they'll go into next year's draft, obviously getting another running back. And I'm hearing it's a loaded draft class, which I do not know yet. I'm just focused on the 2024 NFL season. So we will move on to the last piece that I want to get to on the offensive side. Then we'll flip real quick to the defense. Offensive line. How are you feeling about this offensive line right now versus last year?
Better. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a clear better because I think Trent Brown is better than Jonah Williams. And I was a Jonah Williams is a solid player. I think Trent Brown's a good player. And
Yeah.
then your swing tackle becomes Amarius Mims rather than Cody Ford. And your interiors, I mean, your interior is probably the same. Like Matt Lee, you're hoping for something out of that, or
Mhm.
maybe somebody steps up as the swing interior guy. But just based off the tackles, it's a better offensive line room.
I agree. I really can't disagree with any part of the position group. Obviously, the most important thing is staying healthy, and hopefully, the Bengals are playing deep into January, into February with a healthy or almost healthy offensive line. I never want to see that again, what Joe Burrow's had to deal with when he does get to January. So, hope that works out, but I agree with you. We'll flip over to the defensive side right now. Just go overall with the defensive line. I know they don't have DJ Reader out there. Obviously, a huge loss when you talk about stopping the run. They did add guys like Sheldon Rankins. When it comes to rookies and Chris Jenkins, McKinley Jackson, I know how a lot of people feel about him right now. It felt like it was a bit of a reach, and we've talked about it on this podcast when it comes to his position group and what that looks like. BJ Hill's over there, Sam Hubbard. You get a guy like Miles Murphy, but overall, we'll just stick to the defensive line. Do you feel like it is better or worse than last year?
Slightly worse. I think DJ Reader's impact, I'm not going to understate it to try to hype everything else up. I think he's huge. I think he was the most consistent, possibly the most consistent player on the defense, and if not, like top three defender. And I don't anticipate the guys that they brought in to bring that same level of uh, dominance. So I'm going to say slightly worse defensive line. I do think I expect them to get more pressure, but I just expect them to be worse against the run. And you maybe think like, oh, they can't get worse. Yeah, they can. We saw what happened at when DJ was off the field. It can get worse. So we'll see. I think the depth is better at defensive tackle, but slightly worse in my opinion.
Well, I feel like it is a huge loss not to have DJ Reader there. For me personally, I think they're going to be able to stop some of these explosive and in the air plays versus maybe they struggle when it comes to stopping the run, but it's a passing league, and maybe that's where they get better. Maybe that's where they get the pressure. And I do think all of that connects to your other position groups on the defensive side of the ball. So yes, losing DJ Reader, not going to downplay it. Wish DJ Reader all the best. So happy when they picked him up in free agency. He's been amazing in Cincinnati. But I'm hoping in other ways on the defensive side of the ball, they're able to stop the explosive side of the
Yeah, I
offense.
think that comes from a different area of the defense. I mean, the pressure will probably help, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on when it comes to the linebacker room. I know there's really no changes
Same,
when you
right?
think,
Yeah.
but I expect it to be better. I hope it's
Yeah,
better.
better play, but same
Yeah,
players.
same
Better
players.
play because of what's behind them,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah, no, there were it was we've talked about it. We talked about it last year. There was really a lot of disappointing games between the linebacker crew and the linebackers that we saw out there. They were vets. Obviously the secondary struggled, the linebacker struggled, the defensive line struggled. Trey Hendrickson's really the only one getting pressure out there. But overall, I just feel like I'm hoping there's better linebacker play. And I do, I like what they have. Keem Davis Gaither for one more year, I think, is absolutely huge for them just to kind of have that too in the linebacker room, and Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt. But we'll move on to the safety position, which has been the story this offseason with Dax Hill competing at cornerback. How are you feeling about the safety position?
Better. Yeah.
Pretty easy one. You're bringing a guy
Mhm.
like Von Bell back, and it's pretty much going to be Von Bell, Geno Stone. Do you think?
I think Jordan Battle could take Von Bell's job. I don't
I
think it's
hope
out of the
that
realm
I
of
hope that
possibility.
happens. I want Von Bell to be here and be that leader, be the vocal part, be the communicator, but you want to see that out of your second year starter in Jordan Battle. When we were able to see what he was last year, he stepped up big time in his rookie year. So I'm hoping we see Jordan Battle out there. But I agree with you. I think overall good. What do you say to people who say that the Geno Stone, he had a lot of help on Baltimore's defense and some of those interceptions he got pretty lucky? Do you find him as a strength in the safety room?
Yeah, I like him. I mean, I do think that interceptions, to get that many, you're going to get lucky. Like there's going to be overthrows and tips, and catching those is a big part of that. I can think back to the Reggie Nelson year when he had a billion interceptions, and it's a lot of that ball got tipped and he dove on it, or the ball was overthrown. He was in the right place. He's in the right place. He's in the right place a lot of the time, and that's something that the Bengals didn't really have last season, deep down the field. So I think he's an improvement. Now, I don't think I'm expecting him to ball hawk his way into that many interceptions again, but I expect him to provide a little bit more stability, a little bit better help over the top.
Okay, so I shouldn't have skipped over this because I was talking defensive tackle, and I also put guys like Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard into the same category. But when you think about Miles Murphy in year two, what are you expecting in the edge room?
Yeah, I think the edge room will be better than last season because I'm expecting to jump from Murphy. I mean, personally, I
Yeah,
think
I
that
hope
there was
so.
enough that you saw in the flashes that he's going to be able to make the jump this season. People will still be angry because he's not going to play enough to get 10 sacks, but I think you'll see improvement. That hopefully.
I said I hope so, and I mean I hope that his playing time is high. I hope that they are
Mhm.
rotating him in there. When he was out there, he was showing really positive production. So for me, I'm optimistic that they utilize him. And you got him late in the first round for a reason. In year two, we want to see more of him, and it's okay to take other players off the field even if they've been here for a while. We'll move over to the cornerback room for the Cincinnati Bengals compared to last year. How do you feel with a guy like Dax Hill competing for one of the cornerback jobs?
I don't really consider him that much. I don't think he's winning one of those jobs. Um, So I feel marginally worse, I guess, just
Mhm.
because you don't have Cheeto there. And now, who is the vet if DJ Turner struggles? Do you just go to Dax Hill? Like, I don't feel good about that. Do you go to rookie Josh Newton? Don't feel good about that. And do you go to whoever else? Don't feel good about that. Jalen Davis or the guy they took last year from Miami. Can't think of his name. Um, but yeah, I don't feel good about the depth at corner, like the fourth corner, the third outside corner. I don't feel great.
I'm a little surprised they didn't bring in another vet. Obviously, they had interest. They had
Mhm.
interest, and he chose to go play for the Chargers. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised. And I think this is where the Cincinnati Bengals. I know people will say they need to change their ways in a lot of categories, but I think this is where they need to change their ways. Even if a vet is out there and he's in his 30s, mid 30s, or he can bring that presence to your secondary, or even on your defense, or even on your offensive side of the ball, I think the Cincinnati Bengals should work something out and bring him here. You're not going to overpay for him, but I think getting these guys is absolutely huge when you look at the Baltimore Ravens are a good example of a team that brings in some of these older guys on a 1 to 2 year contract to help their defense, even though they're a little bit older. I think the Cincinnati Bengals need to do that in the cornerback room. I would not be surprised if we see them out of that cornerback by the time training camp gets here. But I think all that's extremely important because I agree with you. Without Cheeto out there, DJ Turner, I'm not sold on. And then you just have Cam Taylor-Britt. You need help out there. And the Dax Hill thing, it's a head scratcher. I don't know where he's going to land or what he's going to do, but a lot of people are like, oh, he'll just cover tight ends. That's when you'll put him out there. And it's your former first round pick. Hopefully you find a position for him on the field, but I just don't know what that is. So I agree with you when it comes to the cornerback room. We'll see what it looks like. Obviously, they had 10 draft picks when it comes to their secondary and even in their quarterback room. Josh Newton, where's his position? Is he going to be more of a special teams guy, or what does that roster overall look like? Because I know, even prior to the 2023 college football season, he had a really good 2022 college football season. So maybe you see that a little bit of a jump into the NFL for Newton. But yeah, to be determined. I agree with you when it comes to the cornerback room. But outside of that, when you think about the team overall, I mean, I'm not even going to do punter because it's to be determined right now. How do you feel overall compared to an early prediction 2023 versus 2024 of this roster?
Overall, I feel about the same, to be honest. Like, I don't know, if guys step up, you feel better. Like, I think that would be the way that this is a better unit, is that the guys that you're expecting to take a leap, and maybe some of the guys that maybe you're not even expecting to take a leap. Myles Murphy, DJ Turner, Jordan Battle. That's one reason I'm more on the, like, it'd be cool if Jordan Battle wins the job over Von Bell, because if he does, he's more likely to take another jump than it is for Von Bell to come in here and give you better play than you're expecting. Like, I think if Von Bell plays, he's going to give you the play you're expecting, or it could be worse, which I'm hoping doesn't happen. You could even think of Cordell Volson, or Amarius Mims gets in there and he's amazing, or Mike Gesicki does get back to whatever level that he used to be, or there's so many options that, like, these players just could get better. I still think it's true about Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow could both get better than they were. They have things that they can improve on. So I think if guys take progressive steps, this is a better roster. If they stay healthy, it's a better, like, if Joe Burrow stays healthy, they have a better shot. But I was pretty optimistic about them in 2023, so I don't want this to be a negative thing. I think if I had to place the bets, I might slightly lean the 2023 roster. It's close, like very close. It's basically Tyler Boyd, and could Jermaine Burton be better than Tyler Boyd? Possibly, but I wouldn't personally bet on it. So that's why I slightly lean it. But I think both of them were championship level rosters. It's just 2023 had the defensive issue. So the way it played out, I don't think you'll have that bad of a defense in 2024. So I'm about equal. I think you lose a little bit of maybe a tiny bit of offense, and you lose the ability to stop the run, but you'll see if these gambles pay off and guys get better. Like, that's the best way that this roster can improve. Dax Hill maybe just steals the nickel corner job because of an injury, and he's amazing, best nickel in the league or something. I don't know. Like, that's my pathway for this roster to be better than last season, but I don't want to downplay that last season's roster, because I picked them to win the Super Bowl. I thought they were an awesome roster.
I agree with you. My biggest thing, and then we're going to move on to our mailbag, is the most important thing to me. If Joe Burrow is healthy, I believe this team can do anything. I truly do. I do think he has more weapons offensively. I hope their run game works out for them. They see the explosive plays. I hope his offensive line protects him. And honestly, I've said it before. I've said it for the last couple months. If Joe Burrow is healthy, everything else will figure itself out. And I truly believe that. Even with their defensive struggles last year, this team was playing some of their best football and beating some of the top teams in the AFC and then the NFC. I'll never forget that stretch with the Bills and the Niners. And I know it was a short term because Joe was coming off of feeling better with the calf injury, and then obviously got injured a couple weeks later in the Thursday night football game, but they put up a fight against Houston after playing some of their worst football in a half, and had a chance to win that game against a tough AFC team in the Houston Texans. So for me, if he's healthy, the rest will be fine. And that's the biggest thing. I just want to see him healthy. And we'll talk about the other things along the way. But next we will get to a mailbag, your mailbag questions. Thanks for sending them. Make sure you're following along, Bengals_Sant at LNDS Patterson on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. It has been a while, but it was time for a mailbag because there's not a whole lot going on for the Cincinnati Bengals. They continue their offseason workouts. Jamar Chase mentioned to the media during his camp that he'd been thrown with Joe Burrow in California. He'll probably be here soon for their OTAs or mini camp or even training camp, but we'll wait to see those highlights next. We're going to just get to your Twitter questions. The first one. All right. From Twitter user, character concerns aside, who would have been picked first if they were in the same draft? Higgins or Burton?
Higgins.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, I think Burton was a second-round pick, but I thought Higgins was a first-round pick. So,
Yeah, you wonder if Burton would have had a better college football quarterback and maybe would have been a little higher. But I agree with you. I think a lot of people look at T. Higgins and I think the Cincinnati Bengals, because I remember that night that they drafted him, I said, oh my goodness, they're going wide receiver. But if you're the Cincinnati Bengals and one of the best players is still on the board, you're going to take a wide receiver. People were surprised another team in the first round did not take T. Higgins. You can look at the Green Bay Packers. You can look at the Minnesota Vikings. You can look at pretty much every single team besides the Cincinnati Bengals because they went Joe Burrow with their first pick, leaving T. Higgins in the second round. So, yeah, I feel like that one's a pretty easy one and for the team. And I know how everybody kind of feels about the wide receiver room right now when it comes to Jermaine Burton and T. Higgins. We don't know if Jermaine Burton's going to be able to be that wide receiver number 2. We got to see him play his first rookie year in the NFL first before we can determine this guy's going to step up and take T. Higgins. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cincinnati Bengals end up taking another wide receiver next year too. I hope Jermaine Burton works out. That's a cheaper route if Jermaine Burton works out and he's your wide receiver number 2 with Jamar Chase, but we just don't know. But I agree with you, T. Higgins.
Yeah, Burton has never had more than 800 yards or 8 touchdowns in a season, and that's fine. But T. Higgins did 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns and about 900 yards and 10, 11 touchdowns his last 2 seasons. So he did that twice. I think production-wise, he's better. He's much bigger. He's stronger. And outside of the combine, where I thought he was more athletic than his combine showed. So personally, I thought Higgins should have gone round 1. And when I watched Burton, despite any character concerns I had, I did not see a guy that I would like, oh, I would have taken that guy at pick 20. Or, well, where the Bengals, I wouldn't have taken him at pick 18, even without character concerns of any sort. But that's me personally.
Yeah, real quick before we get to our next question, T. Higgins, Jermaine Burton, give me your way too early predictions on their stats for 2024.
I don't know. Higgins probably like 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns.
Oh,
and yeah, something
that'd
like
be a good year for him. Good payday coming.
Yeah. Well, as long as he plays, like that would be the big concern.
Mm-hmm.
Burton, 700 yards and 5 touchdowns, something like that.
Sign me up. Sign me up for both of those right now.
Yeah, this must sound great. Like I feel like some people will probably be like, Burton, not 1,000 yards. You didn't even do that in college.
No, I don't even need him. Jamar Chase is going to get 1,600, so it won't even matter. No, I'm just joking. But no, it should be fun. I'm excited to watch all 3 of them on the field. Our next Twitter question is, who are the sleepers on offense and defense that could play meaningful snaps in 2024?
So one obvious one would be Amarius Mims. He's not starting at the moment, but they have a right tackle that is typically misses at least a quarter of the season. So if he misses that time and then, oh, look at that, like Amarius Mims is as good or something like year 1, like that'd be insane. But he's just kind of like, can't bench him. The cat's out of the bag. Like Trent, you're now the 6th. So I think that could happen. I think other sleepers. I mean, for me, it's Trent Irwin. Like if he's wide receiver 4, I'm definitely not shocked. I'm expecting that. And if he's wide receiver 3, I am not that stunned. Like if you roll out there week 1 and it is Irwin out there and Chase is in the slot, I'm not like clutching pearls about that. I think Trent Irwin's a good, solid, like he's great depth. He's a guy that I think a lot of teams wish they had. So yeah, I think Irwin would also be an offensive sleeper. And I guess I have to do defense too. But did you want to hit your offensive guys first?
Yeah, when I'm thinking about it right now, my offensive sleeper, I don't even feel like this is a good sleeper because we've talked about it plenty, but I'm just going to go Chase Brown because I feel like everybody's like, oh, Joe Mixon's not there anymore. He's with the Houston Texans. So they got Zach Moss. Zach Moss is going to be out there. I think Chase Brown is going to be able to come in here. It would be amazing to get a full season with Joe Burrow, obviously battling injuries for the both of them his rookie year. When he was going to be a huge part of the offense. He ended up getting injured in the middle of the season. So I want to see both of them together, and I think he's going to be a huge part of the running game. And it feels like a terrible sleeper, but I'm just throwing it out there. You go defense now.
So I mean, gotta say Miles Murphy, I think, is a little bit of a sleeper. Could he play meaningful snaps if either one of those edge guys gets injured? Yeah, he could play huge snaps. But I mean, you just said you expect Von Bell starting. Like, then I guess Jordan Battle's one of my sleepers. Like,
No,
I think he
I
should
don't want
just
it to be a
take that
bad thing.
job.
No,
It's not a bad thing,
yeah,
but like, I just mean like if people think that it's just Von Bell's job, then Jordan Battle's a sleeper for me. Like, I could see him winning the job and playing meaningful snaps. I could see him starting the entire season if he just wins that job. I think he played pretty well last year, and I think DJ Turner's a little bit of a sleeper because people don't like him.
they don't like him, and I feel bad for DJ Turner. I'm hoping it was just his rookie year, and look,
He was actually pretty good at the start, and then like yeah, he fell off. But did he hit a rookie wall? I don't know. So did Jesse
so did the
Bates.
defense.
So did all of the defense hit a wall. Well, they hit the wall week one, and they never recovered.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's absolutely crazy to think about. But defensively, this is my wishful thinking sleeper just because I feel so bad for him, how things have turned out. It's going to be Dax Hill. I think he's
It's a
going to be,
sleeper.
I think he's definitely a sleeper. He's a sleeper in everybody's room. He's a sleeper for Lil, a sleeper for this this defense and this Bengals team. But yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping there's room for him on the defensive side of the ball, and when he is out there, takes advantage of the opportunities. And Dax Hill is still part of this defense. I want him to succeed in Cincinnati, or at least find a home for him. That's how I feel about Dax Hill.
Yeah.
You don't really feel like he's going to be a
I
big
mean,
part.
it would surprise me. So it would be a sleeper for me. Some people are still thinking that they're going to play 5 safeties this season, regular snaps. So if that happens, yeah.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll get to our next question. Hopefully, all of it works out. Is Brad Robbins a lock to be the starting punter this season?
Absolutely not. I know it was a UDFA, but that Austin McNamara, we had the punt run, the
Yeah, go.
punt guy on, and he said he's the second best punter in this draft, and he had him higher than Brad Robbins. So I think it's a true training camp battle. And if that comes true, Austin McNamara is better, then you have a new punter. Like this organization, we know, does not care that much about special teamers that were drafted. Remember Jake Elliott.
Oh my
Losing the job to
goodness.
Randy Bullock. So if they're unwilling to move on from Brad Robbins because they drafted him, then I don't understand what happened with Jake Elliott because you drafted him. So I know it's different coaching staff, but same front office, same owner. So I would not be like shocked if Robbins is a starter, but I think it's way far from a lock. I'd actually give McNamara probably better odds.
I agree. They're going to put the best player out there. There were plenty of times, and you can go back to last season, that it just anytime Brad Robbins was out there, I rarely could find a highlight for him. And last season had a lot of downs, and there wasn't really any positives on Brad Robbins' part. He started out his NFL career punting 10 times in a game, which was absolutely brutal. And I'm not even saying that was the worst of Brad Robbins, but I agree. You're going to put the best guys out there. We'll see what that looks like. I know for one, when it comes to training camp battles, that's the one I'm going to be watching. I mean, right?
Yeah, probably.
Out of all of them, I want to know. I want to know if it's going to happen, if they're going to move on from Brad Robbins after 1 year. And maybe they do. We'll see what it looks like. But obviously, the odds are high. Make sure you check out that episode with the punt analytics. But we'll get to more of your Twitter mailbag questions in just a moment on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. 3, 2, 1. We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. A few more of your mailbag questions before we wrap up this episode of It's always game day in Cincinnati. Make sure you're following along Bengals_Sands. You can follow me at LNDS Patterson. Is there an evolution of this offense? More playing under center, play action, or pistol looks in 2024?
I've given up on the pistol. I've written about it. I kept thinking it might happen. It's not happening at this point to me. I'm just like, yeah, if it happens, sure, cool. But I don't expect it. I more under center, yes. Play action, like more, yes. But that's because they're like bottom of the league. I don't expect them to come out and be under center more than 40% of the time. I think it'll still be the changeup compared to shotgun. And to me, that is because of the quarterback and what he feels comfortable with. I don't think it's a limiting thing. I just think if you are at your best and you can shred defenses like he's done when he's healthy from the gun, then why change it? Like he has actually over his career been better from the gun than he has under center. Now, with all that said, yes, I think that's the evolution of the offense is to get more under center. They can't get heavy. They still can't really get heavy. Like your best bet there is to go Drew Sample and Eric All is maybe your F guy to be able to be a pretty nasty lead blocker or fullback type. Although people can say Drew Sample. Okay, so maybe Drew Sample's your fullback type, but then I still don't think you really get heavy because then they don't really have anybody that can play in line if Drew Sample's not doing it. So I don't think that they'll be able to pound other teams running the ball. And I don't think that you can line up and expect what some people will complain about by week 2, the balanced offense, the 50-50 offense that only the Eagles and Ravens and 49ers run. That balanced offense, 50-50, nobody's doing that anymore. It's at least 55-45. And for the Bengals, it was 65-35. So maybe you want it to be 60-40. But still, they can't, in my opinion, they cannot consistently line up with their current personnel groupings. I would love to be surprised and be wrong and just pound other teams. I think for them, the run game is still going to be, let's keep ourselves ahead of the chains. Let's get a couple of big plays. But we are a passing team. And the evolution of the offense might be let's get a little more under center. Let's get a couple freebies that way. But I think the identity of the team hasn't changed to me where if it's fourth quarter, 2 minutes, tied game, and they're at the 50, I think they're throwing the ball. Like I don't think they're going to try to run to get to the first down mark. To even pick up a first down, like third and 2, I'm expecting them to throw the ball.
There was a time last year in the Steelers game, they're in the red zone. They needed 1 yard. This team still threw the ball. They didn't even run. And I know it's
with
obviously
Jake Browning.
I know it was Jake Browning out there. But and then I mean, Joe Mixon was the running back, but I'm just saying this team will pass 9 times out of 10 if they can.
And I prefer that because I remember 3 years ago when Zach Taylor took the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands against the 49ers. So I prefer Joe Burrow loses the game versus them trying to run and just going, shucks, we didn't get it and punt the ball and not let your all-pro caliber quarterback try to win the game.
Still one of my favorite Joe Burrow games, and it was a loss. So it pains me to say it, but man, he was absolutely incredible in regulation. That was insane. Man, why did we have to revisit that? Because that should have been the Super Bowl rematch for revenge, and it wasn't. Next question over in the mailbag. Who is the RB1 by the time the season starts?
Zach Moss, in my opinion.
Okay. Tell me why.
I think he can do everything. And at the moment, I don't know if Chase Brown can do everything. I think Chase Brown is kind of the Tony Pollard type of the team where and Tony Pollard was at his best when Zeke was there too. So that's where I kind of I think he's the lightning in a bottle. You give him 12 touches in a game. Maybe he turns that into 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Maybe he turns it into 15 yards and no touchdowns, 1 first down. But I think it's going to be Zach Moss as he'll be. I mean, you never know because it was Chris Evans that got the first carry last season. But I think Zach Moss will get the majority of snaps to start the year.
And that's fine with me. That's totally fine with me. I hope we're talking about that towards the end of the season because it was a good move by the Cincinnati Bengals. I know how a lot of people felt about it at the time. It was a very quick move at 8:30 or 9 p.m. during free agency, and the Cincinnati Bengals brought in Zach Moss. I do think they think highly of him. We'll see how that turns out, but I just want their running game to be better in 2024 with this offense. It will never be, as you mentioned, a 50-50 offense, but it does need to get better. Mike, what's coming up on All Bengals?
Absolutely nothing right now.
That's great.
I'm doing a little bit of the break. So I mean,
No, I'm just joking.
yeah, we'll see. I got a lot going on next couple of
Yeah,
weeks,
you got
and
a lot
then
going on
I'll
in your
restart.
life. You're busy. But we will make sure, as always, you check out Mike's work, Bengals_Sands. You can follow me at Lindsay Patterson. The off-season workouts will continue for the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, they will get into OTAs next week. Then it's mini camp. Then it's training camp. Then we can debate if the starters should play in preseason because I am not doing that in May. But as always, thank you for listening to It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati.